Howdy, I want to talk about While Waiting. This is a newer game that just came out, and it's a game about waiting. That's all the game is about, is waiting for the next moment to happen. And the way it works is that you have scenes. It goes one scene at a time, and each scene, there's something you're waiting for. It could be waiting in the rain, waiting to go to sleep, waiting to hear the results back of a test. And as you're waiting around for all this stuff, you have additional things that you can do. So as each scene appears, you'll have a little like notebook journal that'll show up, and it'll list 4 or 5 different things. And you can get badges for doing these different things. And one of them that's consistent throughout pretty much every scene is doing nothing. So you could literally just wait and not do anything in the game whatsoever, and you still get a badge reward for it. But there's other little things you can do while you are waiting for the next scene. You can like sneak around, you can interact with different objects. Every scene is kind of different. There's a different vibe, there's different things you can do. Sometimes the perspective changes in terms of you seeing the character or it being like a first person mode. Everything is different, but it does follow sort of a story. As you're going between each scene, you're getting senses of a story developing. You start out like right before you're born, like as you're being born, and then you're going through your entire childhood. And then once you go through that, you'll get into adulthood. And there's a good amount of scenes here. I mean, I just finished the kid growing up scenes, and it was like 30 scenes. And the thing is that each scene takes a different amount of time. Most of the time, you don't know how long you have before a scene ends. So you're trying to complete all these side activities while you can before a scene ends. And you can complete multiple in a scene, but the catch is, though, is if you go for these side activities, you won't get that do nothing badge. You have to not do anything to get that badge. Or if you try some of the scenes and you fail, sometimes you still get the do nothing badge, or sometimes you don't get any badge whatsoever because you did try to do something, and even if you fail, you still technically did something. And so it makes this game very interesting because every scene is so different, it's kind of unique. If you like games that are sort of mini collections with like a game within a game sort of thing, then you're gonna have a fun little time with this. It's go cool art style. There's not any like voiceover or anything like that. There's a lot of text dialogue, but it's just throwing you in there and you're just going moment by moment. But little things in the scene help advance the story, little dialogue. Sometimes the title of the scene will kind of help set up where you're at in this person's life. And it's very interesting to see this kind of unique way of storytelling. You don't see that often. So the controls are super simple too. You're just using, you know, the left stick, which I use my controller, and like the X button to, you know, interact with stuff. Or sometimes there might be another button where you can like crawl or things like that, but that's it. You're using, so for the controls, they're pretty simple. You're using the left stick and just one button, at least on the controller. And that button you use to interact with stuff. However, there's a secondary button which you can basically fidget with. If you really want that accomplishment of not doing everything and get that badge of having to do nothing for every scene, they have different ways you can fidget. There's like fidget spinners, there's like clicking the pen, and they have this in every scene. So if you really want that accomplishment and you're like, I'm not gonna do anything this entire game, you could technically fidget with the secondary button and just keep pressing the button over and over and over again. And for people who get addicted to that sort of like, you know, fidgeting like I can sometimes, you gotta be careful because you'll end up just constantly doing that the entire game. But it's cool to have that silly additional option in there and to see like what item you have to fidget with. And you know, there's not a huge selection, but they do vary it up from scene to scene. And I thought that was a nice addition. But yeah, the secondary fidget button, the move with the stick, and then interact button, and that's it. That's all there is to it. It's a simple, easy game to play. It's a fun little time. Again, you want to play in sections because the game just keeps going once it stops, from scene to scene to scene to scene. There's not really a break necessarily. So it's kind of up to you to figure out how many scenes you want to do in a row before you stop. Like I said, I did kind of 30 in one shot, and it felt like a little bit much, so I might trim that down a little bit as I'm proceeding further into the game. But you can also check and get a rough idea of how many scenes there are in the game, how many you've gotten, and all that. So it's kind of cool to keep track of that. But yeah, y'all, check this out. It's unique and different, and I really had a good time playing it. Definitely recommend.